going to start the recording. So this one's for Michael. I don't know if you guys saw this morning, but I posted about exercise. Did you catch that post yet?
I barely saw it right now.
Okay. No rush, but my friend Bobby, who I trained with in January, sent me a workout like for a month, all these workouts, and none of them require any gear. So I thought I'd share them. And just in case you're wondering, at the end of the post, there's a sweatshirt, and that's this one. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, yeah.
But you'll recognize it in much less clean condition on the website. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the reading where we left off. And for the post, two things occurred to me since the last time we met. One is that there's a lot of posts on there, and I'll keep feeding you ideas of things to write about. But really, when it comes down to it, at the end of the semester or whenever the administration says the grades are due, we're obviously not going to have, I thought about trying to do the Masterpiece Academy online, and I think it's right now just a little bit much for everyone. Although, if you have a big question that you're researching and you want to teach us something, I'm totally down. But I'm not going to make that a requirement. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is thinking back over the course of our writing, seeing what you've got on your blog, thinking about the people who've been able to participate. I'm not going to hold things against people, but as you go through the journals and the blog posts, obviously, the more you create, the better you get at writing and reading, the more I can help you, and the better excuse you're going to give me to give you an A that I really want to give. The other thing is, I read in the Los Angeles Times this last weekend that someone discovered a group of writings, and I'll publish this on the blog, from 1600, I want to say, or 1500 in Italy. And in Europe, obviously, this is not the first time humanity's had a plague or a pandemic, but all of the same things were coming up for people who had to practice social distancing or be in their homes. And so yesterday, my son got the idea to start his own blog. Swear to God, I didn't ask him. He just did it on his own. But if you want to turn the journal part of our course into your online reflection about what it's like to live through this moment in history, I'm totally okay with that. So I'll post that on the blog too. But if anybody wants to just hijack the topic of the day and instead write about your experiences living through this moment, that's perfectly okay with me. So before I start the book, does anybody have any check-ins or questions for me?
Oh, so wait. Sorry, you can go first.
Go ahead. Oh, Dallas, you can go.
Oh, my question was like, it's looking more towards like, are we gonna take like the AP exam on our at home with cameras, like how they're saying, or are we still going back to school? Is that like a probability?
Well, the official word is that school is closed until further notice. So officially, that's what I'm supposed to tell you. If you're asking me just person to person on my own Zoom account, I would be really surprised if we wind up opening school. If the pandemic goes into some sort of unexpected dormancy or mass recession and people are not worried about contagion, I suppose it's possible, but I can't see how that would be possible at this point. We have a month, and all the medical experts that I'm trying to keep up with are all saying that the worst is still in front of us. So that's my best guess. I know that's not really helpful as an answer, but if I had to bet on it, if I were you practicing and getting ready to take the exam, I would be thinking I'm probably going to be taking this at home.
Okay, so that's good. Yeah.
And if I find out anything different, you'll be the first to know.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I think the cases in like Santa Maria are still growing right now because like it went from like being like 5 to like 20 by today, I think. So I doubt they're gonna be able to like open it soon if it keeps spreading and people keep like going out.
Yeah. And the other thing, I don't know if you're aware of this, but our school is actually a really wonderful community resource right now. Our cafeteria is sending home something like 1,200 meals a day. And our gym is a community center for the homeless.
Oh yeah, I did read that on the newspaper.
Yeah. So that's where things are at. And, you know, sometimes you guys have more up-to-date information. Like Elva, I didn't know that about the Santa Maria cases. So I think we can all just keep sharing with each other, and between us all, we'll just kind of keep up with it as best we can. So I know there were two people at once. Deanna, did you want to say something?
Sorry. I was sending the meeting ID to Lily real quick, but my question was like earlier when you were saying about the journal topic.
Mm-hmm.
So we just like make a blog post for it, like on our blogs, and we can just describe like anything like about quarantine, like describe what's going on, kind of ish. Like, is that what you
Yeah,
mean by?
absolutely.
Okay.
Because, you know, the interesting thing is, even though we're all sharing this experience, we're all sharing it differently. Every one of you has such a wonderfully unique perspective on the world, and you have a very distinct style of writing. And when you come out of this and people say to you, what was it like? You'll be able to point to what you wrote, because you won't remember. Like, I don't even remember exactly what happened last week.
Estoy en mi clase de inglés ahorita, pero no, nomás están hablando sobre lo que está pasando. Ya acabé mi trabajo, nomás estoy escuchando.
Hey, Emma, you might want to mute your mic. But Deanna, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Hi, Lily.
Hello.
All right. So where we left off was talking about on Friday how two things happened. So there was a woman who was ratted out for having books in her house. The firemen went and actually burned down her house. She wasn't supposed to be there. Montag talks about how the firemen were just supposed to be like almost janitors and just burn down a house and clean up the wreck. But this time there was a woman there, and instead of getting arrested and going with the firemen, she decided to burn up with her books. And you can imagine how upsetting that would be to see for Montag. But when he comes back home, the author doesn't say flat out like he was crying. It says he knew that when his wife touched his face that her hand would come away wet. So the last thing we talked about was how sometimes authors give us little ideas, but that we actually have to do the work to put together the puzzle. Oh, now that I'm thinking about this, let me take you on a quick tour. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of my house. We're going to go through the kitchen. And, you know, I never tell you anything that's not true, but just in case, remember I told you about jigsaw puzzles?
Whoa.
So that was the last few days. And you can imagine, like, when other people give up, I'm the one at the table who's like, you know, I can't really think right now, but I want something to do and I want to create. So that's what we did. And when you get done with something like that, you almost feel a little bit attached to it. And I think it was, Elva, was it you that was talking about the characters in the TV shows?
Yeah, it was.
Did you think of any shows to tell us about, like recommend?
To recommend, oh, there's one, Lucifer.
Okay.
It's probably like one of my favorite shows, and like it really changed like my perspective on how like I see him. I know it's just a show, but like there were some parts where it just like it just made sense, and like I got really attached to the character and like his personality and all of that. And I don't know, like when like I watched it more recently, like last night, and whenever he'd like you can just like see like the pain in people, and like you'd feel it because like you felt something like that before.
Yeah.
And it's just like the fact that you can relate to what some of the characters go through and all of that, that makes you like really attached to them.
For sure. And you know, 5 of us might watch Lucifer and have totally different reactions, like it, not like it, get it, not get it. But that's the great part of stories, because it's not just the thing. You know, if I hold this book up, this book by itself, you know how when little kids, you ask them like about a book and they'll go, oh, it was boring or it was awesome.
Yeah.
No, the relationship between us and it is one of those things. So in a way, what we're really learning how to do is make meaning from things. And then sometimes it suits our taste and sometimes it doesn't. But if you want to put that show in the chat, maybe we can get a link to it. And oh, who knows, I might find a way to teach from that too.
Okay, yeah, I will.
All right, thanks. So for now, I'm going to pick up, and Montag at this point is in the bedroom with Mildred, but remember they have 2 separate beds and it's a pretty cold place to be. Late in the night, he looked over at Mildred. She was awake. There was a tiny dance of melody in the air. Her seashell was tamped in her ear again, and she was listening to far people in far places, her eyes wide and staring at the fathoms of blackness above her in the ceiling. Wasn't there an old joke about the wife who talked so much on the telephone that her desperate husband ran out to the nearest store and telephoned her to ask what was for dinner? Can you imagine like the friends of yours who walk the halls with the earbuds stuck in their ears? You'd actually have to call them to say hello because you can't like when they walk into class and I say hello, they never hear me. Well, then why didn't he buy himself an auto seashell broadcasting station and talk to his wife late at night, murmur, whisper, shout, scream, yell? But what would he whisper? What would he yell? What could he say? And suddenly she was so strange, he couldn't believe he knew her at all. He was in someone else's house, like those other jokes people told of the gentleman drunk, coming home late at night, unlocking the wrong door, entering a wrong room, and betting with a stranger and getting up early and going to work, and neither one of them the wiser. Millie, he whispered. What? I didn't mean to startle you. What I want to know is, well, when did we meet and where? When did we meet for what? She asked. I mean, originally. He knew she must be frowning in the dark. Why would she be frowning?
Because she probably doesn't remember either.
Yeah, so here we have indirect characterization, right? He clarified it. The first time we ever met, where was it and when? Why, it was at... She stopped. I don't know, she said. He was cold. Can't you remember? It's been so long. Only 10 years, that's all. Only 10. Don't get excited. I'm trying to think. She laughed an odd little laugh that went up and up. Funny, how funny not to remember where or when you met your husband or wife. He lay massaging his eyes, his brow, and the back of his neck slowly. He held both hands over his eyes and applied a steady pressure there as if to crush memory into place. It was suddenly more important than any other thing in a lifetime that he know where he had met Mildred. It doesn't matter. She was up in the bathroom now, and he heard the water running and the swallowing sound she made. No, I guess not, he said. He tried to count how many times she swallowed, and he thought of the visit from the two zinc oxide-faced men with the cigarettes in their straight-line mouths and the electronic-eyed snake winding down into the layer upon layer of night and stone and stagnant spring water, and he wanted to call out to her. How many of you have taken tonight? I misread that. How many have you taken tonight? The capsules. How many will you take later and not know? And so on every hour. Or maybe not tonight, maybe tomorrow night. And me not sleeping tonight or tomorrow night, or any night for a long while, now that this has started. And he thought of her lying on the bed with the two technicians standing straight over her, not bent with concern, but only standing straight, arms folded. And he remembered thinking then that if she died, he was certain he wouldn't cry. For it would be the dying of an unknown, a street face, a newspaper image, and it was suddenly so very wrong that he had begun to cry. Not at death, but at the thought of not crying at death, a silly empty man near a silly empty woman, while the hungry snake made her still more empty. So that was a little bit of the backstory about what led up to making him cry. It wasn't just about seeing the woman burn with her books like we might have thought. It was actually about his current situation and what wouldn't make him cry. How do you get so empty, he wondered. Who takes it out of you? And that awful flower the other day, the dandelion, it had summed up everything, hadn't it? What a shame. You're not in love with anyone. And why not? Well, wasn't there a wall between him and Mildred when you came down to it? Literally, not just one wall, but so far 3, and expensive too. And the uncles, the aunts, the cousins, the nieces, the nephews that lived in those walls, the gibbering pack of tree apes that said nothing, 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 and said it loud, loud, loud. He had taken to calling them relatives from the very first. Hey, how's Uncle Lewis today? Who? And Aunt Maud. The most significant memory he had of Mildred, really, was of a little girl in a forest without trees. How odd. Or rather, a little girl lost on a plateau where there used to be trees. You could feel the memory of their shapes all about, sitting in the center of the living room. The living room. What a good job of labeling that was now. No matter when he came in, the walls were always talking to Mildred. Something must be done. Yes, something must be done. Well, let's not stand and talk. Now, as I imagine this, that dialogue is the characters in the TV shows that she's watching as he comes home. Let's do it. I'm so mad I could spit. What was it all about? Mildred couldn't say. Who was mad at whom? Mildred didn't quite know. What were they going to do? Well, said Mildred, wait around and see. He had waited around to see. A great thunderstorm of sound gushed from the walls. By the way, has anybody ever walked into a room where another person in your family is watching TV?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you notice about the person who's watching TV?
They're just like focused.
They're like, yeah.
Yeah, they're focused on the TV.
Well, it's an interesting word that you chose. And by the way, Elva, that's an awesome note in the chat. If you haven't seen that, you guys might want to just carry on the conversation. Thanks for that. They're not focused on you, that's for sure. But a lot of times it's kind of like just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just sort of like zoning out. And there's actually a word for that.
Y con eso lo vas a limpiar. ¿Y a
Might
poco
wanna
no se
mute
puede
your mic,
limpiar con
Fred.
eso? ¿Eso no se limpia así con pura jabón nomás? ¿Ese?
It's almost like they're in a, what's called a beta state.
Sí se limpia, mira.
Because, and if you've ever done this, you know how like if you snack while you watch TV and you keep snacking and you keep snacking and then all of a sudden your hand comes up empty and you realize that there's nothing in the bowl.
Yeah.
Right? So that's his impression of his wife. And it was indeed remarkable. Something had happened. Even though the people's in the walls in the room. Oh, and by the way, here's the illustration of Mildred in the. Even though the people in the walls of the room had barely moved and nothing had really been settled, you had the impression that someone had turned on a washing machine or sucked you up in a giant vacuum. You drowned in music and pure cacophony, which is like a noise. He came out of the room sweating and on the point of collapse. Behind him, Mildred sat in her chair and the voices went on again. Well, everything will be all right now, said an aunt. Oh, don't be too sure, said a cousin. Now, don't get angry. Who's angry? You are. I am? You're mad. Why would I be mad? Because. That's all very well, cried Montag, but what are they mad about? Who are these people? Who's that man and who's that woman? Are they husband and wife? Are they divorced? Engaged? What? Good God, nothing's connected up. They, said Mildred, well, they had this fight, you see. They certainly fight a lot. You should listen. I think they're married. Yes, they're married. Why? And if it was not the 3 walls, soon to be 4 walls, and the dream complete, then it was the open car, and Mildred driving 100 miles an hour across town, he shouting at her and she shouting back, and both trying to hear what was said, but hearing only the scream of the car. At least keep it down to the minimum, he yelled. What? She cried. Keep it down to 55, the minimum. So they don't have a maximum speed limit. They have a minimum that you have to go faster than. But what? She shrieked. Speed, he shouted. And she pushed it up to 105 miles an hour and tore the breath from his mouth. When they stepped out of the car, she had the seashells stuffed in her ears. Silence. Only the wind blowing softly. Mildred, he stirred in bed, and now you realize that all of this is happening in his mind as he's thinking. He reached over and pulled the tiny musical insect out of her ear. Mildred, Mildred. Yes, her voice was faint. He felt he was one of the creatures electronically inserted between the slots of the phono-colored walls, speaking, but the speech not piercing the crystal barrier. He could only pantomime, hoping she would turn his way and see him. They could not touch through the glass. Man, you know, when you think about this, this is like the emotional version of social distancing. Mildred, do you know that girl I was telling you about? What girl? She was almost asleep. The girl next door. What girl next door? You know, the high school girl. Clarice, her name is. Oh, yes, said his wife. I haven't seen her for a few days, 4 days to be exact. Have you seen her? No. I've meant to talk to you about her. Strange. Oh, I know the one you mean. I thought you would. Her, said Mildred in the dark room. What about her? Asked Montag. I meant to tell you. Forgot. Well, tell me now. What is it? I think she's gone. Gone? Whole family moved out somewhere, but she's gone for good, I think. She's dead. We couldn't be talking about the same girl. No, same girl, McClellan. Run over by a car. 4 days ago. I'm not sure, but I think she's dead. The family moved out anyway. I don't know, but I think she's dead. You're not sure of it? No, not sure. Pretty sure. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Forgot. 4 days ago. I forgot all about it. 4 days ago, he said, lying quietly there. They lay there in the dark room, not moving, either of them. Good night, she said. He heard a faint rustle. Her hand moved. The electric thimble moved like a praying mantis on the pillow touched by her hand. Now it was in her ear again, humming. He listened, and his wife was singing under her breath. Outside the house, a shadow moved. An autumn wind rose up and faded away. But there was something else in the silence that he heard. It was like a breath exhaled upon the window. It was like a faint drift of greenish luminescent smoke, the motion of a single huge October leaf blowing across the lawn and away. The hound, he thought. It's out there tonight. It's out there now. If I open the window, he did not open the window. I'm going to pause there for today, and I'm wondering this. Was it a surprise to hear that Clarice was dead?
No.
No, you saw it coming?
Yeah.
How did you know, Michael? Have you read the book before?
No, I just had an idea.
Wow, good call. Because for a lot of people, when they see Clarice at the beginning of the book, they think she's going to be like, part of Montag's life.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What did you think about Mildred's reaction?
I feel like it's how the firefighters reacted to her when she like overdosed on the sleeping pills. Like no emotion or anything. It just kind of happened.
Yeah. So Yasmin wrote, she was super calm. Almost like she just didn't touch her. She wasn't affected by it at all.
He wasn't phased.
Yeah. So again, we have some indirect characterization here. Now I have to ask, and I've forgotten who, was it Odalise or was it Elva? Somebody said that they were giving Mildred the benefit of the doubt in the beginning. Who was that?
Oh, it was me.
Okay. So, and remember I said I'd keep checking back in with you. What do you think now?
Yeah, my opinion on her has like completely changed. Like with all the conversations that they have, I feel like that's what has had like the most effect on me and my opinion on her.
Yeah. It gets more challenging, doesn't it? Because there's a piece of me, at least, that wants to be good and better than I feel and say, kind of like Tom in The Great Gatsby. And I kind of want to go, maybe she had a difficult childhood. Maybe she just didn't get that chip. Maybe she's someone I should even feel some empathy for or sympathy for because, gosh, I don't know. And then there's a piece of me that's just like, Montag, dude, you made a bad choice.
I feel like everyone's like that. Like in the book so far, like every other person that we've met besides Montag and Clarice was like really like just like boring and like not good people, I guess. Like they didn't really do anything like when bad things would happen, and they just had like you just got to see a lot through like the dialogue.
Yeah, you're right. So like the firemen set this robot and kill small animals with it. Then they burn people's books. Montag's wife seems to just care about the TV. And I find myself starting to wonder, like, is this individual personalities or is it the culture where they live? Like in The Great Gatsby, it was like driven by money.
Mm-hmm.
And this culture seems to be driven by like what? I'm not even sure. And then I think about ours. So I'm wondering, what do you guys think would be a good topic for a post today?
Probably
I kind of like what you mentioned.
Sorry, I heard a couple people at once. I heard Lena and Deanna.
You can go first.
Okay. Oh, I kind of liked what you mentioned right now when you were like talking about like how each society or like community was like driven by something. Like, in The Great Gatsby, they were driven by money. And I feel like in this society, like I can't really tell what they're driven by or if they're just like robots, like their government tells them one way to do it and they're just programmed to do it in that certain way. And like that's why they don't really show like that human compassion or like emotion for things.
Yeah.
And like connecting it to like today, like what are we driven by? It's like, oh, I don't really know.
Yeah. That makes a good sense. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Should I just go with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Hey, listen, if you're in the AP class and you wrote on that topic, please make sure that you share a Google Doc with me so that I can get on there and edit between now and Friday. I've already
Did
gotten
you-
a few.
Did you send that link again? Because after you left, I can't see the link anymore.
Which link?
The link to the prompt.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's on the course blog, but yes, I will, Lily. And
Okay.
will you do me a favor in case I dump out of this and do a few other things and forget? Will you please just send me an email reminding me and I'll hit reply and I'll send you the link.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. All right, everybody. Anything else before we call it a day? I really want to thank you because you guys have become my regulars and I really appreciate this time that we have at 1 o'clock every day. I hope that your friends can make it. And even if someone is in our classes and not your friend, I hope they can make it too. But in the meantime, it makes me feel really good to connect like this. And I hope it's working for you too.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
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 Bye.